And now, our feathered friends, they're here in the studio. One of the biggest owls you will ever see is there with Lisa.
That's right, Pat. These birds are absolutely beautiful. You know, if you watch the news at all, you've probably heard stories about people who smuggle drugs, weapons, or even top secret information. But this may be the first time you've ever heard about someone who smuggled birds. That's how Jonathan Wood made his living until a brush with the law changed the course of his life forever. Take a look.
I was getting quite a reputation as a bird smuggler amongst the underground of bird smugglers that is out there. We were destined to become millionaires.
Bird smuggler? Now that's a profession you don't hear about every day, and you might be surprised at how many people are actively involved in it. Jonathan Wood was one of those people. He was one of the stars, but his fascination with birds didn't always include foul play. Even as a child, he loved them.
I've had an interesting life. I've always been interested in birds. I started my fascination with animals and birds when I was probably 7 or 8 years old. I'd spend a lot of time in the woods near my house, watching birds, photographing them, reading books about them. And I met an ornithologist when I was 11 years old who was trapping falcons out on the beach. And he had a falcon just like this that he had trapped. And he was kind enough to spend about 15 minutes with me explaining what he was doing. And he let me actually look at the bird face to face. And I fell in love. It was kind of a life-changing experience.
His interest in birds was temporarily replaced with more destructive pursuits.
Drugs, alcohol, all kinds of things like that were pulling at me, and I totally forgot about, going to church. I stopped going and stopped praying.
Jonathan stopped praying and started smuggling exotic birds. He says initially it was just a hobby.
It just became part of my lifestyle to go out and get the birds that I wanted. I enjoyed rappelling down cliffs, rock climbing, tree climbing, and the adventure of being on an expedition to go out and get these birds was always exciting to me as well.
This lifestyle ultimately made him a prime target of Operation Falcon, a federal investigation on bird smuggling conducted by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. By then, he'd been arrested several times, his wildlife licenses were revoked, and he was in deep trouble.
On September 12, 1984, we were ready to fly back to the United States with a huge collection of eggs. I believe under my shirt I had at least $250,000 worth of rare bird eggs at that time. And so we were heading back thinking we were going to be rich. We were even planning our next expedition for the following year. And we were destined to become millionaires.
Laughter quickly turned to tears when he found out his companions had set them up as a part of a plea bargain to get out of going to jail. When they flew into Los Angeles International Airport, they were sitting ducks for the authorities.
I just couldn't believe I'd gotten myself into this mess. I never in a million years thought that I'd wind up being in such a terrible situation. And I was devastated, totally devastated. Crumpled, I was in tears. I got down on my knees, and I realized that there was no one out there that could possibly help me except for God. I knew that He still answered prayers. So I started to pray, and I said to the Lord, God, you know I'm in trouble, and my only way out is through you. If you can turn this situation around somehow, I'm going to find out who you are. I'm going to seek you, find out who you are, and have a relationship with you. I realized then and there that this was the time to change. This was the time to start a whole new path. And I didn't know much about God. I didn't really know too much about the Bible. But I had a revelation that God somehow uses people to get his gospel across and to get his ministry established here on earth. And right after that prayer, I met my wife, Susan. And she had been to some Bible studies and knew a little bit. And she suggested that we would go to a Bible study that was being held in the small town that we lived in up in the mountains. And I said, sure. I said, this sounds like a great avenue for me to learn a little bit more about God.
Jonathan was found guilty on 3 felony charges: conspiracy, federal violations of wildlife law, and felony smuggling. But his prayer was answered. Instead of 12 years in prison, he received 5 years of probation and his wildlife licenses back.
Sorry to wake you up. This guy works the night shift a lot.
Today, Jonathan's career is soaring. He stuck to his passion for birds and made a career out of it, this time legally. He and his wife Susan have dedicated their lives to wildlife rehabilitation and birds of prey education. The Raptor Project is the largest and most diverse traveling collection of raptors in the world. He even taught me a thing or two.
Oh yeah, that's familiar.
Okay. You know, I always thought that I'd want a relationship with God when I was dying, when I was 70, 80, 90 years old, lying in my deathbed, that I'd start to pray and like patch things up and ask for forgiveness. And I realized that's a ridiculous notion that, you know, you gotta make God a part of your life. God, you knew exactly where I was, and you knew that I needed you, and you were there when I needed you. Everything that I've done that's good in my life has been something that you've produced in me.
Well, Jonathan's here with me now in the studio, and he's brought part of his bird collection with him, birds of prey. Look at this. Oh, will she fly in? There we go. She's been practicing.
Welcome to Wild Kingdom.
Yes, thank you so much. These are incredible birds.
They certainly are. It's, you know, the Bible says, delight yourself in the Lord. He gives you the desires of your heart. And this has been my passion all my life, and it's just wonderful to be able to work with
Tell me a little bit more
birds.
about each one of these birds. What's unique about them, where they're from?
I've got quite a collection here. I've got birds of prey. These are all owls here from many different habitats. And
this one that flew in for us.
That's a barred owl, which is really common all over the country, B-A-R-R-E-D. And it's a bird that's found pretty much in wet woodlands. We've got
to Native America.
Native American bird, similar to the spotted owl that's out in the West
Okay.
Coast. It's an endangered species. This is an endangered species called the short-eared owl, which is from the Arctic. And this bird lives in the wetlands most of the time, so this bird's suffering because of that. Most of the birds I have here have actually been hit by cars, so they have handicaps, either broken wings or missing wings.
So you're able to provide a habitat for them.
Yeah.
Now, these two you said earlier are daytime owls. We think of owls coming out at night.
Right. Actually, God made most animals to be nocturnal, so the owls fit right in with the night shift. But there are two owls here that are diurnal owls. They're active in the daytime, and these are one of them, the short-eared owl. This is a burrowing owl, also a daytime bird, and it lives underground. It's a burrowing owl that burrows, lives in the desert, and it's an interesting bird. It can actually imitate the sound of a rattlesnake rattling to defend itself from prey that's
As a defense
predators.
mechanism
Oh,
to
it's
keep
wonderful.
prey away.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And these are all considered birds of prey?
They're all birds of prey. All the owls are, yep. I have owls, hawks, falcons, and eagles.
Tell me about these two.
This is another common owl. Looks like he got a little hangover here.
He's got the droopy eyes.
Yeah, this is a screech owl, another common owl found all over the country. His name is Solomon. He's a wise-looking bird. And he's full-grown. He's not a baby, but he can eat about 900 mice in a year, which is pretty amazing.
Goodness. And that would be native to North America as well.
Very common and very well camouflaged, as you can see. A lot of these birds can blend in very nicely with their habitat.
Tell me about this. We got some great shots of this one
this
earlier.
is a very interesting character, battery-operated bird. He's a spectacled owl from South America, from the rainforest.
Really?
And they're very rare. He's got kind of a white head right now, but that's going to change over to all black. He'll have markings that will appear around each of his eyes, and it'll look like he's wearing a pair of spectacles. So.
And this huge bird over my shoulder.
That's Tiger. Hey, Tiger, wake
open
up.
Your eyes. Oh, look
We're
at those
working the night
eyes.
shift a lot.
Look at those eyes.
You're looking at
now,
the
can
largest.
I touch him? Will it
sure,
bother
go right
if I-
ahead.
Hi, Tiger.
He only attacks on command.
Hi, Tiger.
So
Okay.
you don't have to worry. He's the largest owl in the world, Lisa, and he's called an eagle owl. These birds aren't found in the United States. They're found in the forests of Europe and Asia and parts of Africa. And most of the time they're eating things like rats and mice and rodents, but you're looking at a bird that can actually take down a small deer occasionally.
Now, really?
Yes.
Oh my goodness! So
he's
with their
kinda
claws, then they can.
Oh yeah, they got the big talons. He's got feet almost the size of a bald eagle.
Oh,
and
look at that!
And his eyeballs are larger than
His
yours.
claws as big as my
hand. Oh yeah, you can
hand.
cut him on the back of the head. He's very soft.
Oh my goodness!
Hey,
Look at
Tiger.
those colors. Now we've all heard about the wise old owl. Are owls really as smart as
Well, what
we've been
God's
led to believe?
done when He's designed these birds is He made this bird with such large eyeballs, there wasn't enough room left in their skull for too much of a brain. So they're actually not that wise, but they're very well programmed to do the things that God intended them to do, controlling rodents and other animals.
And can they really turn their head
They
360
can turn their
degrees?
head. Let me see if I can give him a little chiropractic there. You've actually got 7 neck bones in your neck, 7 vertebrae. He's got 14. So he can turn his head 270 degrees.
270.
He can look at you, he can look at me, or he can look at just
Hi there,
about anybody
Tiger.
here.
Hi there, Tiger. Oh my goodness.
So he's neat.
You were an evolutionist before you became a Christian, and now you really
I bought
use
into
these
the whole
words
theory of evolution, yeah.
to talk about the God of creation. Tell
used
me
to
about
teach
that.
it. You know, God, after I got saved, taught me line upon line, precept upon precept, here a little, there a little, and weaned me away from that false teaching.
Yeah.
And what he's shown me about these birds in particular, they're just living masterpieces. You look at a bird like this, and to think that this possibly could have evolved from a cold-blooded reptile or something is ridiculous. So what they do is they testify to us, to you and me, that God's a wonderful designer. He's an architect, he's a creator, and he created you and me fearfully and wonderfully. He runs a fly-by-night operation when he's not on the His wingspan's 5 feet wide.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, maybe we'll terrorize a few people in the studio later and let them fly around.
Oh, my goodness. Jonathan, thanks again so much for being with us today. God bless.